I think a lot of the time, if you're really wanting to make change, like find stuff you love and stick to it. 1% better a day. How could I make small changes every single day that were going to impact my life in a big way? Just show up for yourself every day, and like you'll look back in 6 months' time and be like, oh my God, like
100%.
Look how far I've come. I made a promise to myself, and if you can't keep a promise to yourself, then who can you make a promise to?
Hey guys, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Catch Ups in My Kitchen with me, Georgia Simmons, host of the podcast. This week we are joined by the gorgeous Izzy Utterson to talk about glowing up and her glow journey. Izzy talks a lot about glowing up online, and we spoke about what that even means and defining the glow. A lot of people would think that a glow up is very much aesthetic, but actually it comes from a deeper place. It comes from happiness, it comes from feeling positive in yourself both mentally and physically, and the glow you see is actually radiance from within. Of course, there are alterations to diet and skincare which make a difference too, but the inner glow is the stronger glow and the one which may actually take the most work. Izzy and I touch on the moment where she changed her life and what triggered her to do so. We go through habit stacking and easy additionals that she has incorporated into her everyday in order to live and feel the best version of her. This is a fantastic episode of hacks which make you feel the best version of you. I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please could you like, share and follow us wherever you're listening, and if you think one of your friends would also love this episode, please send them the link in order to help us spread the word and ensure we get fantastic guests on in the future such as Izzy. Thank you so much again, and as always, have a lovely, lovely rest of your day. Izzy, welcome to my kitchen. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really good. I'm excited for this conversation.
No, me too.
So, to kick things off, do you mind giving an elevator pitch? Who you are, what you do?
So, my name is Izzy. I guess I call myself the glow up gal, getting you from 0 to 10. 0 to 10 meaning kind of, I like to say that my methods, if you will, are like a couch to 5K for your mind. So getting you to a place where you really feel like you're ready to take on the world. So you're ready to kind of take on your fitness journey, your nutrition journey. But what I really like to do is get people into that right mindset where they can make sustainable, lasting change.
I love that. I think also this is like not just skin change, not just exercise change. This is like whole body transformation change. Obviously, like 0 to 5K is like very much just fitness, and I think actually you can have that for life.
Yeah.
So totally. I think that's great. So we have a quick fire round about all things food. So, great. Sweet or savoury?
Savoury.
Juicy burger or overloaded salad?
Overloaded salad.
Cook in or eat out?
Cook in.
Yeah, I'd be the same.
Yeah.
And what's your go-to cuisine?
Japanese.
Yeah, good one. And what's your go-to delivery?
Ooh, at the moment it's a pho.
Oh, yeah. Okay, nice.
That's the go-to at the moment. Yeah. It's very. I feel like Vietnamese is very healthy and easy. So if I'm going to do takeaway, I like to
good
keep
one.
it healthy.
Yeah, nice. I agree. Mine's always like an Attis or that type of
Attis.
vibe.
That's the lunchtime go-to.
Yeah, delicious. Okay, I want to start with painting a picture of you in 2020, 2021.
Yes.
Pre kind of your glow up journey.
Yeah.
Can you explain where you were at physically, mentally, who you were then? Explain that period of time.
I feel like just a bit of a mess. And I don't like to say that because I think like you can't obviously, everyone has their values and everyone has kind of where they're at. But I think for me in certainly like 2019 to 2021, I was diagnosed with psoriasis, which is an autoimmune disease affecting your skin. And it's basically like your body's kind of attacking itself. So on a kind of more like chemical hormonal level, like there's a lot of inflammation in your body. You're very tired. You're not feeling so good anyway. So the fact that you're kind of feeling so exhausted anyway isn't super motivating. And not having the tools to deal with that, not really knowing what it was, kind of there's not so much research around it and there's not so many people speaking about it. So for all intents and purposes, I kind of thought it was a skin condition, but it's so much more than skin deep. So coming to terms with that, and I think as a woman then in her early 20s, you know, your body is so much of your value. I think we place so much value on that, especially I did then anyway. So I think having your body kind of become so affected and not well really, affected me mentally, emotionally, spiritually in so many ways. I felt very hopeless. I felt very kind of sad. And I think, you know, when you haven't got the tools or the knowledge to deal with that, you kind of turn to quite toxic behaviors. So I turned to like binge eating. I'd never had an amazing relationship with food, but it got even worse. So it was kind of the other end of the spectrum where I was binge eating and comfort eating and very quickly put on quite a lot of weight. I was binge drinking. I was just indulging in behaviors that were not very healthy. And that kind of continued. And I think with lockdown, there wasn't much to do. You know, there wasn't really... You couldn't get out, you couldn't go to workout classes. There wasn't really, or for me, without the tools, I think you had to be very mentally strong to kind of keep on top of it, right? So for me, who didn't have those tools and hadn't gone on that journey, it became this very toxic time for me. When I think back on those 2 years, 2019, 2021, it's really dark in my memory. I kind of think about memories in like light or dark, and it's very dark in my memory. And then in 2021, towards the end of the year, in October, my mum was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. So that was a bit of a turning point for me because I think that was probably the lowest I'd ever been. I just couldn't stop crying, and it kind of forced me to look inwards and become a lot more aware of my health and my body and my mind, a lot more grateful for my health, because nothing like that had really ever happened to me. I'd obviously had my own health struggles, but something as kind of shocking and quick as that and hopeless as that, because, you know, there's no cure, there's no kind of hope, I guess, with it as an illness, though there are ways to obviously deal with it, and we do. But at the time, it was such a kind of shock for me that it really forced me to look inwards and, you know, seek happiness in ways that I hadn't thought to before. So that's kind of a very broad, brief overview.
I guess it also really puts things into perspective. And I think when you're in that cycle of binge eating, binge drinking, you're like, oh, like, why not do it again? Like, oh, it's fine. Or like, you can get lazy with your decision making. Like, it's fine. But then when something like that happens with your mum, you're like, oh, actually, like, I can sort this out now. I make a change now. Because and actually,
Totally. And I think for me, like, I always say, people say, how long did it take you? I'm like, I'm still on the journey. It's, you know, and I think I will be forever of like glowing up, let's call it. But I think the problem with, just to go back with binge eating, binge drinking, that kind of thing, I've been learning a lot. We spoke about it before we came on about, you know, the chemicals in our brain, and the dopamine release that you get from the center of your brain when engaging in those behaviors is so quick that it's, your body becomes and your brain become kind of reliant on it. So it's, oftentimes we know what the good thing to do for us is. Like 70% of smokers don't want to smoke, but they do. They carry on doing it. We know what the healthy and right thing to do is, but we can't do it. And it's that block of that kind of, the center of our brain is literally reliant on that dopamine. So I think when I had that shock, I was so like drained of anything that it was almost like this reset for my brain to be like, okay, we've got to build from zero here. Because we can't keep engaging in those behaviors, because apart from anything else, I had to show up for my family. Like, I wasn't the one being looked after anymore. Actually, I had to very quickly become that role for, you know, for my dad, for my mum. Like, my mum did everything for all of us, so I kind of took on that role quite quickly. So I couldn't be hungover and I couldn't be feeling bad about myself. So it kind of forced me to grow up very quickly.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And like, it is funny how, like, I've been speaking to friends recently about the fact that for all our life we get cared for, and then there's a switch when sometimes we then become a carer, and it's like, oh wow, like, it is quite an interesting thing. And also I think in terms of always being on that journey, I think you can build healthy habits into your everyday life, but like, you know, some days, weeks, months are more, it's easier to keep that sustainable than others, and you're always learning new ways to do it. And also it's like, our body becomes used to certain things, and it's good to change it up and shake it up and like, oh, I'm gonna include this into my diet, or I'm going to take this away, or I'm going to try and get up half an hour earlier. I'm going to, you know, so I think we're always on this journey. And everyone kind of talks about eras, and I know that's a word that everyone's talking about at the moment. But like, it's not, it ebbs and flows. And I think that getting, you know, if you went from 0, but you'll never be going from 0 again, probably, because you've built all these tools in your toolbox. But you'll be going from maybe a lower point up again, and then a go down a bit, and then up again. So yeah, I think that's so interesting. So I guess the situation with your mum was maybe the trigger that made the change?
I think so. I think it doesn't have to take something traumatic like that happening. I think you can just make that decision, but when we have learned behaviours and habits, like you've mentioned, even if they're good ones, we have good ones, we have bad ones, we have ones we don't even think about. And, you know, like you wake up and you shower and you brush your teeth, you don't really think about that. And toxic behaviours, you know, can be the same. If it's your ritual to like work like a dog all week, and then Friday comes around, you go straight to the pub and get absolutely hammered, like that's you don't even have to think about it, right? So I think, just as an example, and there's, you know, lots of other good things and bad things, but it took me so out of that, you know, where I felt like I was just starting from that 0. And I think in terms of my mental health, it was my rock bottom. But again, I don't think you have to necessarily reach your rock bottom or have something awful happen. But for me, that was how it worked.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So then what did you do in your journey? What kind of changes did you then make to change the way you were, or start edging upwards from 0?
Yeah. So a lot of it was environment change. I think I associated where I was living probably quite a lot with these behaviours. I think the relationship I was in at the time was associated quite a lot with these behaviours. So those were 2 things I very quickly kind of got rid of and was quite ruthless about it. Again, that's not everyone has to do that, but I think you have to make an assessment of like, okay, where and who with am I engaging in these behaviours, and is there a way for me to actually remove myself from those situations, or kind of reframe the situations in which you're spending time with those people. So instead of, you know, doing it in an environment you think you might engage in bad behaviours, maybe you see them for a walk or you see them for a coffee, you know, just reframing. It doesn't have to be such a savage cut.
Yeah.
So I think that for me was the first kind of step, and just really focusing on getting a day. How could I make small changes every single day that were going to impact my life in a big way, and not falling for the marketing of like juice cleanses and 8-week transformations and this, because at the end of the day, that's all it is marketing. Like, it's not sustainable, it's not long term. And I think accepting that this was a journey that I was going to have to go on, and that it was going to take a while, and that was really probably end of 2021, 2022, you know, it's 2 years later and I'm still feel like I'm like on that journey, but I'm in a way better place than I was then. But I always say to people, I don't feel like I made one huge change. It was a series of really small, achievable changes. But of course, everyone wants to go from 0 to 100, you know, they see the person with the perfect body and the perfect life and the perfect job, and they think, I want that. And it's like, you're not seeing, it's this thing called the plateau of latent potential, where it's, we call it overnight success, I guess, and it's not that. No. You're not seeing all the blood, sweat and tears and hard work that's gone into it. And I think I had to go inside myself a little bit and reassess who I was hanging out with and where I was hanging out, and just accept, actually, this is going to be a journey and it's going to take some time, and I'm not going to, you know, weigh myself after a week, and I'm not going to like look in the mirror and be nasty to myself. Actually, I'm going to be really kind. Like, not that it's even about the physical changes, but, you know, those would come, and mentally it would happen. And just being consistent with myself, never missing 2 days in a row, and making sure that, you know, I was doing my gratitude every day and listening to my affirmations every morning. And, you know, you never, or very rarely, I would say, you know, you listen to people talk about when they go on their like fitness journey and they start practicing gratitude affirmations, like, it's true. Like, this stuff does work, but it's not an overnight thing. You've got to work at it. And, you know, you see all those like, and I'm not this hardcore, but, you know, and it's like, go offline for 2 months, like ghost mode, do this. It's like, I don't think you need to be that intense. Like, I'm very much not a believer in like 75 hard, and that I don't think it's sustainable personally.
No, I agree.
But I think there's an element of it where it's like just show up for yourself every day, and like you'll look back in 6 months time and be like, oh my god, like
100%.
look how far I've come.
Yeah, ultimately you're wanting to change your life, and to change your life you've got to change your everyday, and those are making really, really small changes. And I actually love what you said about the environment, because although you don't have to physically change your whole environment, but I do actually believe if you want to make a change, changing something about your environment helps that.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like I had a previous relationship and my room was still the same, and I lived in that room the whole time, and I was like, and we spent a lot of time in that room. He basically lived with me, and literally yesterday, bearing in mind I split from this relationship like over 6 months ago. Yesterday I changed like parts of my room.
Good
like
for you though. I love that.
And I didn't, and this morning I walked back into my bedroom and I was like, oh my god, I feel so different. And it's just this, I changed a throw in cushions, people. I didn't change anything that exciting, but like it just gives it a refresh and a revamp and a like, oh, actually, like, just out with the old, in with the new. And it can just be as simple as changing the colour of your bed linen. This episode is brought to you by Paraa, the sustainable solution to all your oral care needs. We are now at the start of a new year, which is a perfect time to make some small changes in order to live more sustainably. Our toothpaste tubes and mouthwash bottles are not recyclable and not biodegradable, so every toothpaste tube you've ever used still exists on the planet today, which is mind-blowing. So whether you're looking for some high-gloss whitening toothpaste or mouthwash with probiotics inside, Paraa is the answer. And by using Georgia Simmons, you can get 10% off your first order by heading to www.parlatoothpastetabs.com or clicking the link in the show notes. Make a purchase, make a small change, and that will have a huge impact on the environment. Now let's get back to the episode. Or whatever it is, I think that's really important. And also with the 1%, I do this a lot with work. I think sometimes after busy days, you can sometimes think, what have I achieved today? Both professionally and personally. I think, and this comes back to like a gratitude. And if you're not a writer, you don't have time to journal, even just thinking, what have I achieved today professionally and what have I achieved today personally? And I actually think those are so good to do, just to make yourself feel better. Like no one wants a wasted day, and that's my biggest thing. It's like every day counts. And like if you just change something or increase it by 1%, by the end of the year that's 365% better than the day you started. And I think you're right, everyone thinks, okay, let's sacrifice this and like, starve myself till 12, and that will make, these are too drastic, and you'll end up falling off the wagon and you won't end up getting to the 365%.
Exactly. And like there's actual science behind that. Like there is science behind the fact that if you do starve yourself, or you go on these crazy crash diets for however long, you will put the weight back. You know what I mean? Like, and it's, I hate to talk about weight loss too much because it's not the forefront, but just as an example, as a kind of metaphor for everything else, like it's not sustainable, and your body kind of goes into this mode of shock, and then when you start eating normally again, or you fall off the wagon, like you said, like everything is just gonna, because you haven't built a sustainable foundation on which to kind of build new habits and build a new lifestyle.
Completely. So what were some of the changes? Like give some examples of like what you did change. Like obviously again, diet and weight loss isn't the main thing, but like did your diet change? Did your relationship with exercise change? Like what were some of those changes?
So like I said, I was in a relationship that I had to get out of because I just needed to be really selfish. I think very important for me for that first year was to be on my own and to be very selfish. And I say selfish not in a way of, I think typically how we would think it. I say selfish in a really positive way, where like I like to wake up at 6:30 and go and work out. That's just what I like. For some people, they're probably listening and thinking like, oh my God, it's my worst nightmare. Fair enough. But like I had to get to that place, and I needed to be on my own to do that, because the partner I was with at the time would like shout at me and so I'm like, why the fuck are you up so early? Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just like not a way to wake up. So I needed like, it's not the conversation, but I needed like peace when I woke up, and I needed, and I'm lucky enough that I'm in a relationship now where like we both align on schedule, and it's like peace when we wake up and we get that, and that's a flow. But I had to be on my own for that time to get into that schedule. And same with healthy eating habits and everything. And I think when you give yourself time to be on your own and figure out what it is that makes you tick, that makes you happy, that's sustainable for you, not to kind of bring relationships into it, because I don't think that you have to be in one or don't have to be in one, and it's totally your preference. But when you do meet someone, then you're so sure of yourself and your routine and your habits that you won't settle for anything less than someone that aligns with that. And I think that's been another amazing thing for me, just in terms of a support system, because, you know, life gets hard.
Yeah.
But again, when I was on my own, I was showing up for myself like that, and I would just, you know, I made a promise to myself, and if you can't keep a promise to yourself, then who can you make a promise to, right? So I made the decision that it wasn't that I changed my diet drastically per se, but I think I just listened to my body a lot more. And I talk about that a lot. It's kind of intuitive eating. If you're hungry, eat, and, you know, try and make wise, healthy choices. Don't starve yourself to the point of then binge eating, and, you know, just making sure that I set myself up for success and having 3 meals a day, and, you know, knowing how much protein I should be eating, all the things that we kind of know. And ultimately, if you want to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit, right? So kind of, I always talk about how I don't count calories per se, because I think that can get obsessive, but I think it's important to know how many calories you need a day and how many calories are in certain food. I think to be educated on nutrition, as well as your own body and what you can eat and can't eat, you know, what maybe doesn't agree with you in terms of like a gut health level and bloating. I think as women, like, we suffer quite badly from that anyway. So there's an awareness of your body. And I think it's like, first and foremost, you have to start from a place of love, but you've got to get to know yourself. So give your time to get to know your body and what it can take. And I think a lot of the time, if you're really wanting to make change, like, find stuff you love and stick to it. I think we switch things up a lot. And I say to people, I'm like, just stick to similar stuff every day, as boring as that sounds.
Definitely. And like, don't change something that's not broken already. Like, if you're wanting to make changes, like, work out already what's working, and then make the changes of things that aren't working. Totally. But don't try and change everything.
Yes.
And I think also there's so much power for being okay on your own and being comfortable on your own. For
sure.
Whether that's, you know, you can't, I know we're going back to relationships again, but you can't pick when you might meet someone. So even if this is a month or 2 months or 6 months or a year, it doesn't really matter the time, but being happy and comfortable in your own company,
oh my god,
is really important.
It's invaluable. And I still have that now. I love my time on my own.
Even if that's like a 15-minute walk to or from the station, like, having comfort in that, and then checking in, how am I feeling, am I hungry, am I full, am I tired, like, all these little check-ins, like, it is, and I think we can look for those quick fixes, and I'm gonna do what my friend does, and I'm gonna but ultimately, like you say, like, intuitively checking in with yourself is good.
Totally.
So let's talk about glowing up and your phrase. What does it mean to glow up?
So I think there's a lot of like toxicity probably surrounding the phrase glow up. I do talk about it physically. I think when I talk about the changes, I think physically you can see them. I talk about that a lot on like my socials, and for me, that's just a way of, you know, showing people, like, for me, when I look at those photos, and it's funny because I've had a few messages from like girls being like, kind of unwelcome messages, I suppose, kind of like, you know, this is so toxic, you know, and it's like, I never said I looked bad before. At no point in any of my videos do I bash myself. I never use any negative words surrounding myself, be that in past tense, present tense, future tense. I don't do it. It's just not something that I believe in, because I think your words kind of become reality, right? So talking about yourself, you know, how can you talk about yourself that way? You wouldn't talk about your best friend that way. Why would you talk about yourself that way? You know, so I'm kind of like, I've never said ever that I was, you know, any kind of negative, but I know how I felt. I know the toxic behaviors I was engaging with, and I see a very lost, very sad person. And now I'm confident, I feel strong, I feel like the best version, I feel like I'm doing the best I've done. So yes, there are physical changes, but I'm really, for me, I see so much more deeply than that. I see someone who's very lost and not taking care of themselves, just someone who I'm actually really proud to be. And that's the glow up I want to talk about. When I talk about glowing up, I really talk about the inside out. It's about feeling your best, you know, and that ranges from feeling the workouts I do that make me feel strong, the mindset affirmations and the gratitude that makes me feel good, that makes me glow from within, the gut health tips that I do that make me feel consistently full of energy and rested and, you know, not kind of sluggish and rubbish. I think it's a culmination of so many different things. I think a lot of people are quite focused on the kind of like, how did you lose weight? And it's like, that's a byproduct of everything. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, okay, yes, I did, but only because I was at a weight that was unnatural for me, if that makes sense, because of the binge eating and everything like that. So I think for me, it's not so much about that as it is being totally, you know, in love with yourself and happy with who you are, and actually thinking that you're a good person, and knowing that everything you're doing for your body is for it to function at the optimal level and to look after it. You know, that phrase, like, your body is a temple. Like, it is. Like, you have to, you know, and with my mum's diagnosis, to bring it back to that, I've seen firsthand what stress and late nights it's that disease is a combination of so many different things, but there can be lifestyle factors involved, right? And how we treat our bodies now is, you know, it comes out later on in life. We kind of feel invincible, I think, when we're young, but the way that you treat your body is very, very important for your long-term health. So there's that awareness.
I think in London as well, we're very much, or maybe in cities in general, we're very much pushed burning the candle at both ends, and out and busy, and like back and let's walk and let's gym and da 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 da. And I think I sometimes think, wow, this is an exhausting lifestyle which will catch up with us.
And it does. Like, you'll burn out, you know, in the short term. You might have like a breakdown, you know, and also it could affect your health detrimentally in the long term. So
no, for sure.
Yeah, so I was just, and it sounds kind of, people are kind of like, why? And it's like, well, I'm thinking very long term ahead, but I just want to make sure that I'm the healthiest I can be while I am the healthiest I'll ever be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. And I think the word glow is definitely like, is a combination of so many factors, and it comes from within. Yeah. And it's, I think if we're unhappy, you hold on to weight, and if you're happier, you do glow from within. And totally. If you're unhappy, you don't look as radiant. And like, happiness comes from feeling happy. With food makes you happy, sleep makes you happy, friends make you happy. Like, there's so many different contributors to happiness.
Totally.
So I think, obviously, people can be kind of saying your content could be triggering, or whatever they've used to describe your content, because you're referencing chapters in your life. And I think I look at it like that. Like, a lot of people like to delete chapters out of their life, but I think chapters build up to form the bigger story and the bigger picture. And you're highlighting chapters and saying, this was me then, this is me now. And you're not saying, God, I was terrible then and I'm amazing now. Like, you're not saying that. You're saying, like, come and see my journey, come and let me tell you what I did to change, and maybe that can help you be glowier and happier.
Exactly. And it's, you know, it's very much like a spiritual, emotional, that kind of change, but that I can show in a physical change, if that makes sense. So I think for people to understand it, it's quite a good tool to use. Yeah,
and I actually think the word glow up is actually a way more positive than some of the other phrases that could be used, because glowing is such a great thing, and it can be mental, physical. Like, you're not defining it as I'm radiant because of my diet. You're literally saying glowing from so many other contributors, which I think is really, really nice.
Exactly.
So let's touch on habit stacking. Yes. So do you incorporate this? If so, how, and what is habit stacking to you?
So habit stacking or habit layering is really kind of, if you want to incorporate new habits into your life, but obviously, you know, you're very busy, a lot of us are, it's adding new good habits onto existing habits. So let's say, okay, I want to start listening to positive affirmations in the morning, but I don't have time. Firstly, there's always time. But, you know, okay, well, you have a shower every morning, you brush your teeth every morning. So why don't you use that 2-3 minutes where you're brushing your teeth to listen to the positive affirmations? So you're adding that new habit onto an existing habit that you would be doing anyway. So it's really optimizing your time in a way that is the most time efficient for you. Let's say, you know, I want a moment of self-care for my skin. You know, I want to do this mask that I know makes me feel good. It makes my skin glow. But again, I don't have to, okay, well, you're doing the washing anyway. So maybe just pop it on, leave it on for 10 minutes while you're doing the washing, hanging the washing, that kind of thing. These are obviously like quite basic examples, but I think on a level of understanding what habit stacking is, that's probably the clearest way to explain it. And it's really just optimizing our time, like I said, using it to its best ability. I think we have so much on, and there are so many things to do, and you know, so many amazing things. But I think as much as we can utilize the more mundane moments or the more everyday moments to incorporate new positive habits, we'll see those positive changes and that kind of glow over time.
Definitely. It's productivity, isn't it?
Exactly.
It makes so much sense. And also I think people often do think they haven't got time, and I so get that, because we are constantly told to do this and that and the other, and there's so much information out there, and it's like, oh wow, I need to be using my gua sha tool, and I need to be using a red light, and I also need to be going to the gym when I get back, and I also need to cook from scratch, and how do I do it all? And I get it. And I also think that you can't do it all every day, so I think maybe break it down into a week.
Absolutely.
But yeah, habit stacking is, you also want to just chill out. Okay, well fine.
Absolutely.
Just chill out, and then maybe have your gua sha in your hand and rub it around your face. Like,
totally.
You know, I think habit stacking is great, and it makes it more manageable. And easier to try new things and incorporate into the everyday.
Definitely. And when you are chilling out, you know, like watching TV or whatever it might be, like pop your red light mask on or whatever it is you want to do, you know. It doesn't have to be, you know, these things can be done in a way where it's like actually all quite enjoyable. I think there's kind of an idea that it's like I have to add something good onto something like boring or bad. It's like, no, you can do like 2 good things at once. Like it doesn't have to be
completely,
you know.
And like you say, like do things that are enjoyable for you, like do things that work for you. And I think that's also really key. Like if you find some of these things an absolute nightmare and you hate it, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it.
Like, but try it, and if it's not for you, then just get rid of it, because you're not going to stick with it, and then you'll feel bad about like quitting. So just may as well not even add it in.
Exactly.
If it's not for you.
I will not force myself to do anything that I really don't enjoy or don't want to do if I don't absolutely have to. Obviously there are things in life that we kind of have to do that we think, I don't really want to do that, but it's just you know, like going to get like, I don't know, like a pap smear or something like that. Do you know what I mean? There are things that we don't want to do that we have to do just for our health. And I think there are things like you run, don't you? Yeah. See, I'm like, I run, but I don't enjoy it. I've tried it. It's not for me. I get really bored. I'm quite like need to be stimulated all the time. But I think like I'm looking at all the gals like joining
all the run clubs. Oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh, cheeky marathon on a Sunday morning. I'm like, shit, like should I be doing that? Like, I don't know. Like it makes me feel like my like Pilates girl era is like, I'm like, oh my god. Yeah. But it doesn't always have to be for you. This is why as well with movement, I'm like, find the movement you love. That could be swimming, could be dancing, could be trampolining, could be walking. Like it doesn't have to be like running a half marathon. Like it absolutely not. And it's not for me. I'm like, I can't think of anything worse.
It's so funny with the running thing, because also I love running, but I'm a real solo runner.
Oh,
like,
I love that.
Yeah, like
I can't chat and run.
No, I'm quite a competitive person, but I don't like to be a competitive person. Yeah. So I remove myself from something that might put me into a competitive position.
That's good.
So a competition is good, but if I go to a run club with my friends, I won't feel like I'm a very good friend, because I'll probably end up wanting to
like be faster, right?
And I might not, and that's not the point. The point is we're running together and it's fun, and like I don't think I'd find the run club fun, so I do feel really guilty that I love running, but these run clubs I'm like, I just can't join.
No, but I love this for you, because like probably there are people out there thinking the same, like I love running, but why do I not want to go to a run club? And it's like, you don't have to do any of that stuff if you don't want to. You might hate Pilates, you might hate, you know, you might want to do this, that, the other, like whatever makes you happy.
Yes,
like I'm completely. Like, just find a version of it for you, but it does not have to look like everyone else's.
Completely. Like I've now found my happy medium of like Pilates and running, where like I run twice a week and do Pilates the rest, and I love that balance. And I'm not a big meditator or anything like that, but I find running is like my meditation, because you're outside and all of that kind of stuff. And I think everyone has their
thing. Like for me it's Pilates. Like I am not on my phone for that whole class, and like I work on my phone. So for me, it's
the screen time is a joke.
It's my peace in the morning, where for an hour I'm just being like, say this morning, absolutely destroyed by the Pilates instructor, but that's my time, that's my peace, and like no one's messing with that hour. Yeah, like, that's my priority.
Completely. Let's touch on the 3 liquids that you often refer to. So water, peppermint tea, dandelion tea. Yeah. Let's talk about them.
So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when I talk, everyone's always like, how do I glow up? What are the habits? I'm like, the habits I talk about, and I think why my content's done so well is they're all very basic, achievable things. But it goes back to the point I made earlier about we know what's good for us, but we don't do it. So I think if you can, you know, force yourself to get 8 hours sleep and drink 2 liters of water a day and just like actually do those things, it will make such a big difference. I think with the drinking water, there's so much science, you know, to say that actually so much sickness derives from dehydration. So many times people are ill, it's literally dehydration. And there's lots of amazing work on this. There's lots of amazing kind of podcasts where they discuss this. But if at a very basic level, I can just be hydrated, fantastic, you know? Oftentimes as well, we confuse thirst for hunger. So it causes us to kind of overeat. So it helps us in so many different ways. Like you just feel so much better when you're hydrated. You're going to pee more at first because your body's like, you know, if you're going from not drinking very much to drinking a lot of water. But the benefits I've seen, like for my skin, my health, my mind, like everything overall, just fundamental, and it's just so easy for us.
And it's water. It's
water.
It's like everyone says, healthy is expensive. It's free.
Yeah,
it's up to tap.
It's
Don't
free,
drink
girl.
tap water. Not gonna lie, but it's free.
But also like, you know, you can buy a filter, and that kind of is more sustainable in the long term if you do just want to have tap water and filter it, and you don't have to have one of those like bloody, you know, big old cups with the straws to drink water. Like if that helps you, like awesome, like great, amazing, like go for it if that helps you. But it doesn't need to be that. Like you can just, you know, if whatever. I was much better at it when I was in the office because I think I was like chained to a desk, like just drinking water all day because I was so bored. So I've had to consciously be a lot better. Now I work for myself, but
yeah,
at a very basic level that like if you're someone that finds yourself like getting colds or getting the flu quite often, like okay, like maybe check your hydration levels. So I think at a very basic level that peppermint tea is just like my go. Like I'm a bloated gal, like I always, you know, I get stressed or I eat something wrong or whatever it is. Like for me, it's just the most soothing thing. I also think it replaces caffeine for me a lot of the time. I don't like to drink too much caffeine in the day because I have a tendency to get quite wired if I do have too much and kind of like feel a bit funny. So just as like a hot drink alternative, I would say like it's a very healthy one. You don't want to kind of overdo it, but 2-3 cups a day I think is like ideal. Caffeine free, so you can have it at night, have it in the morning. It's a great way to start the day. It's just like a good reset. Dandelion tea is such a funny one. I think I would say if you're not someone that loves herbal tea, I would go for like dandelion tablets or supplements because the taste, I don't know if you've tasted it.
Yeah, it's quite.
It
can be a bit earthier.
It's not amazing, but I love that kind of thing. Like
yeah.
When I have like that like mushroom powder and all that, like I love all that kind of thing.
Same, yeah.
I'm kind of the mindset that if it tastes like that, it must be good for me.
Yeah.
But that really helps with water retention. So I think for so many of us, like with stress, with cortisol, with poor diet, with lack of sleep, with kind of, you know, junk food, not drinking enough water, all of those things lead to water retention. And what that is, that kind of like puffiness, bloating that you feel, you know, like if you like wear a pair of socks and you take them off and there's like indentations all in, that's kind of a good view of water retention. And it's kind of normal to an extent, but people have it worse than others. And a lot of that time, I think when we, especially as women, we get it around, you know, our period, which is totally normal. And that's just, you've got to kind of just accept that and learn to love and know your body in that respect. But there are ways that we can feel and look better by taking control of how puffy we are or how, you know, how much bloating we have, because a lot of the time we'll be like, oh my god, I look, you know, like this, or I feel like, it just makes you feel a bit sluggish and a bit slow. So I think if you can be doing everything you can to kind of flush that excess water out and just have everything functioning as normal, I know that for me it makes me feel so much better. So I think anything we can do to not have that bloated feeling and that kind of puffy feeling and like water retention, just to kind of know where our body is actually at, because our bodies fluctuate so much, you know, during our cycle. I think the more that you can do to kind of keep everything functioning as normal, the better.
Completely. And again, it's a very kind of cost effective way.
Yeah.
It's a tea.
Yeah.
And I think water retention is very, very normal if you're traveling a lot, if you're flying, if you've been out for drinks, if it's late nights. Like, I think anything that kind of puts minor stress on your body just goes and like holds onto the water, and it's just a way of like being like, no, let go, calm down, go.
Totally.
So yeah, if you're like, I can't afford a lymphatic drainage massage or whatever, dandelion tea is a Great.
It's a great alternative.
For sure. So I now want to touch on growing online and how that growth has been for you, and a theory that you have mentioned before, which is called the let them theory.
Yes.
So how has growing online been, firstly?
It's been amazing. I think with the nature of what I speak about and the kind of simplicity of it, and, you know, at the beginning of it was really just to share my tips and, you know, maybe help anyone else along the way. So yeah, it kind of just exploded in summer, which was amazing. And, you know, since then it's kind of just been about thinking about the direction in which I want that to go. How do I want that to look? I think TikTok for me was like a real safe space because like no one I knew followed me on it, if that makes sense. They definitely did, but I wasn't aware of them following me on it.
True. Isn't it funny when someone says, oh, I saw your TikTok, and you're like, what?
I'm like, what?
No, you didn't.
No, that wasn't me.
That wasn't me. And I don't film. Like, no, I'm not on TikTok.
Totally, but it's, my social platforms are all different places for me to do different things, and TikTok is very much my educating advice piece, whereas Instagram I feel like was always more my kind of, this is my life and my friends follow me on here and everyone knows me. So it took me a real minute to like get to a place where I felt comfortable sharing in the same way on Instagram.
Completely. I've really struggled with that.
It feels a lot more like judgy there, but
yeah,
to nicely go into your point about the let them theory, it's my job. So I'm kind of like, if you don't like what I'm posting, like unfollow me. Like it really doesn't bother me. Like I saw someone post this thing and she was like, this is my page. I'm going to post whatever the hell I want. And I was like, yeah, this is my page. Like I can post whatever I want on here. Like obviously like to a degree, like everything I post is like positive, I hope.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going wild, but this is my page is to do with what I want, and the fact that they're growing and the fact that people seem to be engaging with it and enjoying the content is like such a bonus for me. I just think it's so amazing and kind of insane that anyone's kind of listening and taking advice, but it's such an amazing thing for me. Like I always loved public speaking when I was at school, but I think certainly when we were at school, I think you're maybe slightly younger than me, but probably like of the same kind of time, there wasn't, you know, like social media wasn't a job and motivational speaking wasn't really a job, or at least not one that you could go into without having like 40 years of experience as like the head of a bank or whatever it was. Like it just didn't seem like anything for me. So TikTok really became my platform for me to just share things I wanted to share and talk about, you know, kind of like how everyone was doing with YouTube back in the day, like and I just love it. Like I love, you know, when I get to do talks, and I love doing podcasts like this, and for me it's just the fact that it's my job is like the best thing ever. So I want to do everything I can to reach as many people and help as many people, and, you know, just be a support system for as many people as possible, because it makes me happy. That's what makes me tick. You know, people find their careers you know, that they love, and this is, you know, I finally found it at 26, 27. Like I found what I love, and if I can do that, you know, for as long as possible, that's great. But, you know, you've got to build your social presence and kind of keep that up. And with let them, it's like people are going to judge you either way. You know, when I was kind of like in my corporate job and like just getting like wasted every weekend and like not really doing that much, I'm sure people were talking badly about me then, as much as probably now they're like, oh my god, it's so lame, you know, whatever. Like
yeah.
I'm sure that, you know, people are gonna talk badly about you either way. I saw something the other day that was like, if you can accept that 1 in 10 people are just not going to like you, like nothing you do is going to make them like you. 1 in 10 people is just not going to like you. I was like, oh my god, like great. And then the next thing this girl talks about is, she says, who are the 5 people who's like you want to be like in your life, whose opinions actually matter to you, and you place so much value then on them that anything else is just noise. Because why do I care what that person over there is thinking? Because A, they just don't like me because they don't like me, and B, like they're not one of my 5 people that I admire and want to be like anyway, so why am I like giving it a second thought? So it's the idea that people are gonna chat shit about you either way, so just let them. It's none of your business. And I say it to my friends, I'm like, it's none of your business what anyone thinks of you.
Completely. I get that so much, and I think that I do this thing where I got really worried or scared about like trying to film anything in public.
Yeah.
So now I try and do it more and try and watch what they then say. Like
Yeah.
if I film and then I'm looking at that person and I'm like, are they going to make a comment to their partner that they're walking with, or are they going to comment? And like if they don't, I'm like, oh, okay. And if they do, I'm like, what do they say? And I think it's like trying to put yourself into that position more to then like make it more comfortable. But I think also as a people pleaser at heart, it is really hard to then.
It's really hard. But the great thing about I know that you've done lots of public speaking. The great thing about public speaking is like I don't see anyone. Like if that makes sense. I think for me, that idea of talking to an audience, like I almost go into like autopilot where I'm like I can't even remember what I said. I can't even remember, like I didn't see anyone. It's less nerve-wracking for me than being one-on-one with someone.
Yeah, completely. And also, you kind of play a part.
Yeah.
Like it's work, right?
Yeah,
so you step into the character, which is your character.
Yeah.
But it's your kind of public character.
Totally.
So you step into that role and then you step out of it. And I actually have an example where this is really strange, but I had an event recently and there was someone who attended the event who I didn't know but followed me. And they were like, oh, like I saw a different version of you then. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I was like, well, I'm not going to be like presenting when I speak to someone face to face, but I will. Of course. And also if I spoke colloquial whilst like hosting an event, that's also not going to be right. And I was like, what an odd thing to say. I was like, but you are going to be different when you're like, it's two different versions of yourself.
People are always going to say weird stuff like that though.
Like,
and weirdly,
is that?
weirdly, it's those comments that stick with you more than I'm sure the countless people that were like, you smashed it, amazing. Completely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think we've got to kind of shift what we kind of hear and what we don't.
Completely. And when was the moment that you decided to become full-time and what you do now?
So I changed jobs. I got a really amazing job in October of last year, and it just wasn't right from the get-go. I think I left my first day and was like, this isn't right, and I think the feeling was pretty mutual, so I ended up leaving, and I was terrified. I was like, I support myself, like I needed stable income at a very basic level. I was like, right, like if we're gonna do this, like we've got to like figure this out. So I like saved up enough that it meant that if I'd be okay for like 3 months. So I gave myself 3 months. So I was like, right, Izzy, you've got 3 months from the 1st of January to like make this your career and figure it out. And we're nearly 3 months into the year, and I can safely say I think I'm figuring it out.
You're figuring it out.
I think
amazing.
it's been absolutely amazing. And I think I had to make room for those opportunities. I had to make that jump. Angus always says to me, he's like, take the leap and the net will appear. And I think like, I'm kind of like, yeah, but like, no,
what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? What if there's a hole in the net?
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, what if it doesn't? Then, I have 6 years experience, in corporate, and I could go back to it. I'd find another job. Like, it's not the end of the world. I think we catastrophize things. I certainly catastrophize things. So I literally just gave myself that time frame. I said, you've got 3 months to figure it out. And the first month was hard. I was like, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah.
But no, I'm so happy. I feel so blessed, so grateful. Truly, you make room for things in your life by getting rid of that 9 to 5. I made room for like an abundance of opportunity. And I'm so, so grateful for that. And I truly do believe that in your life, you have to start new chapters and make room for new opportunities, because you kind of make that room and the universe listens.
Completely.
I'm quite spiritual like that.
Yeah.
Very practical, but quite spiritual in terms of that. So yeah, it's going really well.
Amazing. Well done. I think sometimes you do have to put yourself in the position where it's like sink or swim, and I did that with this podcast. I was like, I'm gonna make it full time. At that point, it brought in £0.
Yeah.
And I was like, how am I going to function when it brings in nothing?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the only way I'm going to make it work is if I let it bring in nothing, and I'll be forced to make it bring in something. And it forces your hand. And otherwise, you may not send that email you don't want to send, or you may not put yourself in the position where it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But to get uncomfortable, then things start to shift and start to happen. And I think, it takes you to make that leap.
Totally.
And like, it's not going to be like, oh wow, look at all the opportunities I've got. Now I can just hop over and it's full time. Like that seemingly doesn't happen.
No.
It's not like that.
The more you do, the more you're like, I need to do more.
Completely. So we have a final question, which is bringing it all back to food. What is your last meal? So starter, main course and dessert.
Oh my God.
It's hard. It's a tough one.
I love that I said like Japanese. None of this is going to be Japanese.
That's okay.
Starter, we're going to go for a little crispy calamari.
Ooh,
we love. Then main has to be pasta, probably like a truffle pasta or something.
Yes.
And then dessert, pistachio ice cream.
Oh my God, I completely agree with you.
That's my favourite.
I'm dairy free, but they often do like a pistachio sorbet.
If it's on the menu, I'm eating it.
Yeah,
that's my rule.
Divine.
I like don't love dessert, but if that's on the menu, I'm like, well,
it's happening. Yep, completely agree.
Yeah.
Izzy, thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen. Loved hearing your journey and your tips for glowing up and feeling your best version of yourself. I think even if you are listening to this and you're feeling the best version of yourself, there's always little things you can do to feel even better. I think someone once said to me, like, you never know how good feeling amazing can feel.
Yeah.
And I think it's so true. Like, you can always end up feeling better and better and better. So
totally.
Thank you for sharing it all with us.
Thank you so much for having me.